All right, so now I want to create a runtime exception first. So okay, compile, okay, runtime, we can create runtime first, and over here we can take an example for this marriage handler. Okay, now the thing is we can create a class to marriage handler. There will be a runner, Wesley and PSVM, and then we need one more class, marriage registration. Yes, so there are some exceptions that the Java tells us, especially runtime. Right now we are doing the runtime, so we'll talk about the runtime only. So the thing is, during the runtime, if we try to divide something with 0, then Java will let us know that it's not arithmetically possible, right? So it internally throws, we haven't written anywhere, but if we try to divide anything with 0, then it internally throws a arithmetic exception, right? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And
Yes, sir.
similarly, if we try to work with the null, then it throws the null pointer exception. These both are runtime exceptions, right? So what could be, so these are just logic, right? When the exception gets triggered, if the value is null, then it will trigger the null pointer exception, right?
Yeah.
So it means that they are at check and they are throwing the error, right? So let's just check now. So that means if I have a method to register, okay, boolean, let's take this boolean and register marriage. Okay, so if I want to register the marriage and I want a person as well, so I'm not creating male and female because there can be multiple genders. So I'm creating a person, two person want to marry, right? So we can have something private string name, private, and I can take an enum, and over enum I can mention the male or female. All right, and okay, why, that's why I'm using you. Not make sense why it's not accepting. Not making sense. org patch enum. Okay, and invalid method declaration, make void. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, my bad. All right, the name should not be enum. I mean, it's a class. I need to use enum, not as class name enum. I need to use the type enum. All right, cool. So I need to use enum and the name should be gender. So the enum should be here instead of the class. Enum should have been here. All right, now we can simply use the male and female. Okay, and in the person, then we are going to have gender. Okay, and it should not be all caps, and gender, and private int age. All right, so we'll have the setter and getters. All right, so now I can make all our constructor as well. All right, now in the marriage registration I want person 1 person. All right, let's call it male. All person, let's call it female. It can be different, but just for the sake of clarity I'm using male and female right now. Now if, because the checks are different for male and female, because if it's agreed, right, so I can make sure that I register the marriage system drop and talent. Okay, so male dot get name is now, and female dot get name plus marriage is successfully fully registered, right, and return true. So now in the runner, if I simply go and create two person, let's say person Rahul, okay, and then person name gender age, okay, the name is Rahul, gender would be gender dot male, and age let's say 28, and let's say Rahul Preet, and Preet is female, and let's say Preet age is 26, right. Now marriage registration class, okay, and the method register marriage is public, but it's not static, so we can make the method static as well. Now over here I'm using register marriage of Rahul and Preet, right. If I run this program, now the output would be Rahul and Preet marriage has been okay. All right, if I run again, Rahul and Preet marriage has been successfully registered, right. But the thing is, the wrong thing in this code is, if the age of Rahul is, if the age of Preet is 16, right, then too they are both getting married, right. Is it legal in India for female to get married at 16?
No.
No, right. So we need a check. If female dot get age is less than 18, right, then one thing that I can do is throw new runtime exception, and over here female underage, right, and additional data, legal age to register marriage is 18. All right. Now again, if I go back to the runner and try to run the code, what will happen now? Now there will be an error. Exception, right? What is the exception? Runtime exception. Name of the exception is runtime exception. And what's the exception message? Female underage. Legal age of the female is 18, right? So let's say I'll make it 26 again, and I make male at 18, right? Don't judge on the age difference. Just tell me, is it legal in India for a guy to marry at 18?
Yes.
Yes, it's 21, right? But right now they are getting married. So for male also we need check. If male dot get age is less than 21, right? Then I will also throw an exception, right? And the exception would be male underage. It's a message name, and the message would be okay. It could be okay. Legal age to register marriage is 21, right? Okay, so now if I run the code again, now he won't be able to get married, right? Male underage, legal age to register is 21, right? But the thing is, we are using the runtime exception, right? I'm using runtime exception, right?
Sir.
Runtime exception is too generic. It should not be used so casually because it does not provide us any name, right? That's why the Java can also use the runtime exception class, right? But still they give arithmetic exception, right? They still give not pointer exception, right? They still give these things, right? They are the child classes of this, right? Only. So why they are giving specialized exceptions? Because it means something, right? It means something in the code. Because not every time we are going to read the message. Most of the time there will be no message. But the name itself should be self-explanatory, the exception, and it should be not loosely used. If you are in a hurry, then it's completely cool, but otherwise the name should be over here. It should not be runtime exception, right? Because it's not some runtime exception. It's something does not happen randomly. It's your check. And what is your check? Male underage, right? Male is underage. That's why you are throwing an exception, right?
Yeah.
So it should be male underage exception, right?
Yeah.
So you can create your own exception. So over here we can create, okay, let's create an exception, male underage exception. Cool. See, over here it's written Java runtime exception, right? We are going to change it now. Oh, my bad. Okay, then needs to create a class male underage exception. Cool. So this is a class right now, but it's a normal class, right? And there is nothing here. If I create an object instead of going here, instead of throwing the new runtime exception, if I create try to throw new marriage male underage exception, right? So will the code compile? What the throw do? What's the use of throw?
It is used to throw the exception.
Okay, but
Manually.
what happens internally? Yes, manually. It should exception manually. Cool, but what happens internally? Why when do we see this thing on our console? When the throwable object reaches to the JVM, then we get this, right?
Yeah.
So that means whatever we are throwing, it should be a throwable, right? A throw should be throwable, right? You
Yes.
can throw a throwable object, right? A ball is a throwable object, so you can throw it. A house is not a throwable object. You cannot throw it, right? So it should be, if you want to throw something, it should be throwable, right? Right now the thing is, male under the exception is cannot be applied to given types, and this female under the exception. Okay, right now there is the exception, but there is no constructor. Let me change it. Alright, now there should be incompatible types, right? Cannot convert to throwable, right? So we need to convert it throwable, right? So the thing is, there are two types of exception that we know right now. One is compile time and one is runtime. So if we want to make this thing should be this case should be of compile time exception or runtime exception.
Since it's similar to arithmetic, it should be runtime.
This you will decide based, because this is based on some data, right? It's exception. This exception should be based on data. Like null pointer exception is based on data, right? Whether your object is there or not, whether we are working on the null data or some explicit data. And similarly, arithmetic exception also works with the data, right? If something is divided by 0, then only we need to throw, right? Otherwise we don't need to throw. But in compile time exceptions, there are some certain limits that, okay, if you are trying to load a file, please provide alternate implementation. What will happen if we don't find the file, right? That's where the file not found exception, right, that we need to handle. But the thing is, and why we are not putting, because it can also happen with this, right? uh, it can also happen that something can be divided by 0, right? I mean, someone can give an input of 0, right? But why it considered into automatic exception and sorry runtime exception? The reason is because if every time you use a variable, especially integers, right, or any numeric item, any number object, so everywhere you are using it, you cannot put the try catch, right, in every place. Because if you are using number, then over here any int needs to be taken care of, right? So we cannot do it like the get age over here. Also we need to, over here we also need to make sure that, okay, it's not something, I mean, I'm using it somewhere, then I will be forced, wherever I'm using the divide operator, I will be forced to handle it, right? So it's not very good thing for a language to force someone to every time handle something. It can, the automatic exception can handle, it can give us the try catch exception thing, but when we are loading a file, we are loading a file manually, right? It will be, there might be a chance sometime the user will send us the link, or the user will send us the data, right, whether the file exists or not. Then on, or the most of the time the data will be on us, like we create a excel or we create a pdf. So we create that pdf or excel in our server only, and we will try to access that from our server. So it, there might be a chance that something is getting deleted from the server, and when the java is created, there was very, the servers was very less powerful. But the thing is, we are providing a path. There might be a chance something is not there, and it's not a very common thing. Like the null pointer exception can be anywhere, right? So we cannot force someone to write everything. Every object can be null, right? If I'm writing, it's, I mean, by how we decide whether it should be a runtime exception or a compile time exception, right? It's not something that has been written somewhere. The Java people has decided, right, to make sure that automatic exception is a runtime and file not found exception is compile time, right? So they have decided, and they decided based on the frequency that one can use. Like this Rahul can be null, right? Rahul can be null, right? Rahul, if I make the Rahul equals to null and then I try to run it, what I'm going to get? Oh wait, just let me just remove it. Now if I try to run it, I'm going to get null pointer exception, right? So any object can give me a null pointer exception if I try to use it. Where I'm getting null pointer exception over here where I'm using it, right? Mail.getAge. See, okay, my registration line number 13, right? I'm trying to work on a null object, right? So if I create any object, it can give me a null pointer. So I cannot force my writers, whenever they see any object, they cannot force me to write in inside a try catch, right? Because if it happens, because this language is object oriented, right? So everything would be in try catch only, right? So if you are forcing me to write everything in a try catch, so why not just add that feature inside the method only? Okay, see, this thing is something that I mean, are you able to understand what point I'm trying to make?
Yes, sir.
All right, then it's cool. So this is a thing that based on the frequency and based on the use case, you can create or decide whether you want to make your exception a runtime or compile time. So this is a clear-cut example of a compile time, because we are working on the data. Based on the data, we are going to throw the exceptions. So all right, so now the thing is, we know that it should be a runtime exception. So, and I'm going to throw the mail, and the thing is, I can only throw a throwable object, right? So how can I make it throwable? And throwable is a class. Throwable is a class or interface? Throwable is a class, right? Let's extend, but I want to make it runtime exception, right? So I'll extend it as a runtime, so that it won't force us, I mean the JVM compiler is not going to force us to handle it. And now I can add a constructor only, and all right, and super, okay, string, error message and super and error message. All right, so message, instead of error message I can do this thing, then message, and that's it. Now I can go over here. Now the underage exception is throwable, right? Because I made it throwable. How is it throwable? Because it's a child of runtime exception. Runtime exception is a child of exception. Exception is a child of throwable, right? So it's indirectly a throwable now. So I can use the throw with the male underage exception, right? Okay, I'm using female underage exception. Cool. So okay, I just simply can put it over here, and cause it's a male exception, so I will just put it over here, right? Commented out this and uncomment this, right? So now if I run the code, instead of getting over here the runtime exception, now it's saying male underage exception, right? And the message is okay, male underage, okay, female, okay, male needs to be 21. All right, let me run it again. All right, now the exception is male underage, right? It's not some random runtime exception, it's male underage exception. And the message is male underage, legal age to register badges 21, right? Similarly, but the thing is, right now if I want to register a female, so it won't let me to register male less than 21, right? But for 21 it will allow, right? But what if the female is 17, then it's still going to throw the runtime exception, right? Visible?
Yes.
So we are going to create female, same thing, nothing new. Female underage exception, female underage exception. Then over here simply extend the runtime exception class and add constructor, a simple constructor of message, and that's it. Nothing we have to do. And my registration, just simply going to change this thing to female underage exception, right? No, nothing else we have changed. So right now instead of runtime exception, now we have female underage exception, and everything is same. Cool. And if we just simply make it 20, okay, 18, then they both can marry. Registered successfully, right? So this is how we create a runtime exception, and this is how we use our runtime exception. Cool. Any doubts?
Yes.
No.
All right. So the interview question, okay, the interview question over here is usually create a runtime exceptions, right? And then would be what is the process to create a runtime exception in Java? So it's simple, just simply go create a class and make sure it extends the runtime exception, right? The next question would be, how will you able to create this is for runtime exception, right? How will you create a compile time exception? So that's what we are going to do now. And now let's say, okay, for this. So let's stop the recording and let's stop this thing and let me go through it again. So we have just created a file upload. We have created a service of a file upload where we only allow file to get uploaded if the file type is of PNG and the file size is less than 5 MB. Now we have a file uploader. File uploader is going to check the file object. We have created the myFile object in which we have 3 data: file name, file format, and size. So the size is in MBs and the file format is an enum which has 2 values, JPEG and PNG, which represent the file format that we want to upload. So obviously it will be an image. So the file name, format, and upload, and the size. So in the runner we will create a file object and then we are going to upload it. And in the file uploader there is a single method only which takes an object of myFile object and then we have multiple checks which throw exception. If the file format is not PNG, it's going to throw an exception. For example, if I change it to JPEG, alright, and if I try to run it now, I will get an exception of unsuccessful upload exception, and the message will be only PNG format supported. So the exception has arisen from this line, only PNG format supported, exact same lines that we have written over here. Another check is if the file is of PNG, which is a supported thing that we have mentioned over here as well, supported file format, but if I run it again, then also we're going to get an error. Right now the exception name is same, just message has been changed to max file size that is supported is 5 MB, and we are sending a file of 20 MB. So that's how we are created the exception of compile time, and cause it's a compile time exception, we are forced to write throws, handle it or delegate the handling to the caller method, and our caller method is the runner method, and we are not handling it in our runner method also, because we are passing the responsibility to handle the exception to the JVM. And as we already know, if the exception or throwable object reaches to the JVM, the code abruptly ends, and this is the thing that we see on our console. Alright, this and our exception class has been completed.